Welcome back, Wisdom We Boost, to the channel of Doge, but today I'm covering something a little bit different from what I usually do. Although I've wanted to do this for a while, honestly, and that is a Spectating Bronze series. I know, not exactly the most original thing, a whole bunch of people have done that before with Overwatch. However, my quote-unquote unique spin of it is that I want to do it from a very compassionate perspective. I am not doing this to roast or shit on the bronze players and be like, ha, look how bad they are. I'm actually going to, try and help them out and try and encourage them a little bit. Because one thing that I think is going to be really helpful with here is that you know how like everyone in Overwatch seems to have a sort of attitude of everybody's an idiot except me. Well, a lot of that comes from the fact that usually whatever you're doing, even quote unquote dumb players, whatever they're doing, looks smart from their perspective. But the thing is, I think people underestimate how much you just can't see going on at once in a game of Overwatch, even for more attentive players. And that means that usually dumb players think they're being smart, and then you zoom out and you get a wide look at the whole area and you see, oh, that's why I'm doing something dumb. And a lot of the time I say the dumb players, they're not even like necessarily dumb, they just don't have the best awareness. And obviously being bronze, you're gonna get a lot of that. And so taking a moment to actually look back at these games and have someone else look at them, review them, explain what you did wrong, explain how you could do better, will probably put a lot of things in perspective for these people. As well as that, personally, I'm a bit of a defender of low rank players who feel like they're hard stuck there. I do think that if you're good, you will generally climb, but I do think there are certain characters, certain niches, certain situations where I do think that bronze at Elo Hell is sort of half real, I'm not gonna lie. At least in the past, back when I played on console years ago, I know that while I very rarely ended up in bronze, the few times I did, I didn't even bother trying to climb out of it, because I literally never managed to do it once. Speaking of which, I'm not going to make a big deal of this, but I'm not a Grandmaster player. I do play quite a lot. I kind of stopped playing competitive a while ago, but in my quick play games, I'm usually matched with Diamond and Masters players. That is their peak, so I'd probably say Diamond is probably where my rank would be about if I did play competitive. But obviously, if you want to take that with a grain of salt, go ahead. Either way, this is the first one that I wanted to cover. I looked up on the Overwatch University Reddit just to see if I could find a VOD, and the first one I saw was from someone whose in-game name is Grogasmom. He says, I've only been playing Overwatch for 2 months, I recently started competitive, I was put in silver and D-ranked to bronze, and now I don't know how to get out of it. I feel like this is super sloppy gameplay. There was no teamwork or communication. I was spamming the group up button so many times to no avail, so I really just want to see how I could have done better. My aim is atrocious, but that's something I'm working on, and I've actually made progress on. I just want to improve so I can rank up at some point. I don't want to be trash forever. I chose my worst game hands down for review. Hopefully I can take something from this. And this is obviously on Colosseo. And he's chosen Lifeweaver as his character, and obviously this is a game that he lost, and it was at Bronze rank 4. He also added that he plays on Xbox, if that helps the review, and also said that now that he's watched it back himself, he feels like he was playing too defensively, and that he was doubting his team so much and doubting his own ability so much that he feels like he kind of played too passive. Now, I will admit, I've already kind of seen this VOD because, well, I had one run through it, and as I expected, first time it was a bit hard for me to make heads or tails of just about everything because, well, if you haven't seen bronze games before, they are different from your normal games. Obviously, you tend to see people get very, very disorganized, and any kind of normal concepts that would apply to a lot of Overwatch games go out the window because even if there are some competent people on the team in a bronze competitive match, there's usually more people who are just kind of walking around doing whatever's convenient to them. And so you end up with people taking weird positions, doing weird things, being in weird spots. And it kind of makes these games harder to follow than actual high ranked games a lot of the time, just because I'm like, what the hell is going on? Why is this person here? What is everyone doing? I decided that probably the best thing I should do, first of all, to get an idea is, unfortunately, I can't see the scoreboard in the playback, which was really frustrating. So I decided I would go through the effort of watching a decent chunk of every single one of the 5 players on your team in this replay before I get into the gameplay, and seeing who I thought was helping you out a lot and who I thought was dead weight to the team. So I'll tell you this right off the bat. I think your Sombra was hard carrying here. I think your Sombra does not belong in bronze. Don't get me wrong, they made a lot of mistakes. They were a little bit slow to react to things. And the translocator placements were really weird. Some of them were really, really good and creative, and some of them were creative in a not so good way. But overall, more often than not, they would put their translocators in very good spots, better than your average Sombra. And they were very good at prioritizing causing havoc in the enemy back line and very good at avoiding death. To be honest, at first I was wary of this Sombra. I thought that maybe they were one of the reasons you were losing, because typically at extremely low ranks, most people playing Sombra just hide in invis all game, randomly hack people who no one can actually attack, and then pretend they're actually doing something. But no, this Sombra was actually doing a lot for your team, more than anyone else on the team, I think. The other team member who I think was relatively good overall, but not as good as the Sombra, was the Moira. I think the Moira did a good job of being the glue that holds the team together, because she was very diligent in keeping people topped up and making sure they wouldn't die. But the main problem was she was also overly aggressive. Not in the sense that she did too much damage, not enough healing. She did enough healing and she did enough damage. She simply would go for kills on people that she should not be trying to kill alone. Mostly, she kept going after the enemy D.Va, whose health is way too high for Moira to ever kill them, and she would keep going for the enemy Cass, when Cass is one of the better characters in the game at killing Moira, and he would even try and kill the enemy Cass while they were being Mercy pocketed, which is not going to happen if you're Moira. Mercy's going to heal faster than you can damage. Other than that, though, I think your Moira was pretty good. I mean, of course, at bronze, everyone's making mistakes, so being overly aggressive like that is kind of par for the course. I think the two people who really let you down here are your Junkrat and your Junker Queen. Your Junkrat was definitely not as bad as the Junker Queen. He was weird. He would constantly sit really, really far back, which implies that he would be overly passive or defensive, but he would go for extremely long shots and just spam shots and bounce them off walls and just hope they hit someone rather than, purposefully aiming shots. Now, that's not all that uncommon at lower ranks, that Junkrats simply get killed by bouncing shots randomly in the general direction of the enemy and crossing their fingers that they land, rather than actually lining up shots. But the part that was strange was that, as I say, he would play really far back, and yet he would still die a lot. And the reason why was because although he was playing very far back, he would also play way in the open, which is not smart for Junkrat. Junkrat does enormous damage up close, but is really bad at hitting anyone far away. And because there's an Ashe on the enemy team, the Ashe would almost always pick off the Junkrat for being out wide in the open. So I think your Junkrat was letting you down quite a bit. As well as that, for whatever reason, he kept going for mid-air shots on the Mercy, even though I would assume that he's not all that confident in his aim if he's going for, spam strategies rather than aimed shots. So it was weird that he kept trying to shoot the Mercy. Obviously, it's really hard to shoot a Mercy out the sky with Junkrat, and so he ended up missing all his shots and not really doing anything whenever he tried to go after the Mercy. So yeah, and I think the biggest disappointment on this team was definitely your Junker Queen. I think that, honestly, the reason why I'm doing all this preamble is because I actually had a really hard time judging how harsh I should be and how nice I should be towards you in this game. Because while I saw mistakes that you made and good things that you did, when I watched this game, I had no idea whether you losing really had anything to do with you or other people. Now that I've watched other people's perspective, I can say, if I was to simplify down why you lost this game, I would say it was mostly a tank problem. Your Junker Queen basically never got a kill, and basically just kind of ran around wherever she felt like going. She essentially played like she was just wandering around in a free roam game, rather than she was supposed to be the tank who holds the front line of the team. And already, I think that it is a bit of a warning sign when you see a Junker Queen in lower ranks. Of course, it's not impossible for someone to be a good Junker Queen, but contrary to a lot of people's opinions, I actually think Junker Queen is one of the harder tanks in the game. And I think that a lot of lower rank players really struggle to close out kills with Junker Queen, but also she isn't super good at just holding a spot like Reinhardt with a shield or whatever. So you end up getting a tank that can't really hold their ground very well, but also isn't able to get kills very well if they aren't really good with landing difficult knife shots. So, yeah. I do think you got a little bit screwed over here. And I will say, part of that, I think, is unfortunately the price of playing Lifeweaver. You see, if you weren't aware of popular opinion, Lifeweaver for the longest time has been considered the worst support in the game. And I think that's a little bit harsh, but certainly for the average player, that's kind of true. Now, of course, he's gotten massive buffs ever since, and now it's kind of a toss-up. Some people still think he's garbage, some people actually think he's secretly kind of OP now. I honestly can't really say myself, because he feels kind of weird to me now, and I can't really say how I feel about him, but I certainly don't think he's the worst support in the game anymore. Still, the biggest problem with Lifeweaver, though, is that you're playing a character with extremely low carry potential. In other words, you're playing a character where even if you play them well, for the most part, you can only enable your teammates to do well, rather than, if you have bad teammates saying, well, no, fuck this, I'm going to win this game for my team, even if my teammates aren't great. You can't do that very much on Lifeweaver, even if you play him well, because he's so awful at dealing damage to the enemy team, and even the benefits he provides to allies is mostly just healing and nothing else. It's not reses like Mercy, although Mercy is also a very low carry potential character. It's not damage boosts, it's nothing like that. It's just heals and occasionally life grip. The only way that you can really carry with Lifeweaver is if you've got a tank, someone like Reinhardt with a big hammer, and they want to hit someone but they can't get to them, and you just drag the Reinhardt right up to those people. Even if the Reinhardt isn't very smart, they probably still see, oh, I'm in front of these people now, swing hammer. That's basically like the only way you can carry with Lifeweaver, a team that's otherwise kind of disappointing. Or, as I say, get kills, but that's very difficult. So, yeah, you've got a bit of a rough start there. I would say that I don't know if Lifeweaver is your main, or you just felt like playing Lifeweaver here. But I would say that if your goal is to really be able to carry games, and even if you get some bad teammates, win games still regardless, then I would say that you should probably look into some other supports. Although in fairness, you did say that you weren't super confident about your aim, and as you would expect, a lot of the supports that you considered better for carry characters are mostly, obviously, aim-based supports like Anna or Baptiste or Alari. Now, that being said, that doesn't mean it's only aim-based supports. I would actually say that while Brigitte definitely isn't as good as the three I mentioned already as a carry support, I do think you can carry losing games on Brig, and Brig does not require a whole lot of aim, so I guess that would be my recommendation. So I guess just see how you feel about Brig, but if you feel like you aren't clicking with Brig's playstyle, then obviously I wouldn't force you to play her or anything just to rank up. I just think that Lifeweaver is going to be really rough to rank up with. Alright, with all that preamble out the way, let's get into the game itself. And let's put it in normal speed once you get to the point.
Shake the grit out of your knickers and move!
Your end is within my reach.
Okay, so I will give points where they're due. I do like that you peek to see the enemies, you see there's an Ashe, and you instantly get behind this wall, which is obviously good. I mean, I know this seems like obvious stuff to some players out there, but genuinely, we're talking bronze here. This Junkrat didn't do that. This Junkrat almost always, well, he does do it right here. Actually, no, the Ashe might still be able to get him from that angle. And then,
None of that.
no, actually, he is using the cover there. But most of the game, he kind of just stares at the Ashe, and that's why the Ashe gets so many kills on the Junkrat. So, you're at least, making sure not to make that mistake. Now, this is a good example of what I mean by... This is a thing that happens a lot during this game, and I know you said that you felt like this game there was not a lot of coordination and communication, and you were spamming group up a lot. That is absolutely true, because you've got a weird hodgepodge here. You've got a Sombra on your team, which means that she's never really going to be with the team, and that's not her own fault, that's how you play Sombra. She is still helping you right now, even though you can't see, though. She is currently harassing the enemy backline, so that, she's going to be trying to get a kill on the Lifeweaver and all that. And even if she doesn't get the kill, even if she fails and just escapes before she dies, even if that is done, then you at least then she's at least buying time for people to rush in while the Lifeweaver isn't healing anyone. So there's that. So the Sombra's doing what she should be. Meanwhile, the Moira is doing something a little questionable. It makes sense to go down main. The problem is that Moira shouldn't be the one, holding the front line. She shouldn't be charging in head first, ahead of everyone else. And yet, that's kind of what she's doing, which isn't the best. But I can't blame her that much, because the real problem here is right here. This Junker Queen is doing something very questionable right now. They are looking through the window to see what enemies there are. And they're meleeing the window, I guess, to be quirky. And they are not paying attention to the fact there is currently a diva right behind them who has been staring at them for a good second. Which is, that's very questionable. So yeah, your tank really should be down the middle right now. They have enough health that they won't die to an Ashe or a Widow in one shot, and because both of their supports are behind them, they will get healed. So they should not be trying to sneak around the right side. If anything, I would say that the Moira should be the one sneaking around the right side if anyone did want to split up and go right side, and, the Junker Queen should be the one going down main. And unfortunately, of course, that's something you don't really have a say in, and the fact that that's already happening is already a bad start. However, you're not completely blameless, because this is the first mistake I would have to point out. Right now, the diva attacking the Junker Queen is happening right next to you. And it's still happening. And it's still happening. Now the Junker Queen has gotten away, but the Junker Queen is missing a third of their health, and you go right past them. And I think you didn't notice they needed healing. And you start shooting instead when this Junker Queen needs healing. Now, you're going to see why I'm making a point of this. Okay, I will say, first of all, actually, just before I get into this, for the sake of saying something positive here, you said that you weren't very confident in your aim, and you're like, oh, I know my aim is bad. I'm not going to spend a lot of these videos saying, oh god, you got bad aim or whatever, because I don't think it's really helpful. At the end of the day, you just get better aim for playing longer, and there's not that much else to it. There are little techniques that can help, and when that is the case, I will speak up, but if I'm just going to be like, oh, get better aim, I'm usually going to keep that to myself, because it's not really very helpful to just tell people that. Overall, I actually think, considering this is bronze and no one can aim in bronze, your aim is actually fine for this standard. Your main problem is your aim is actually surprisingly steady, way more steady than most bronze players, and that's a good thing. It means that you don't panic, you don't shake your screen whenever you suddenly get a bit flustered and make yourself miss all your shots. But it also means you often are a bit slow to react, and it also means you're very slow to turn. That might be because you got low sensitivity, I'm not sure. But that essentially means when a target isn't moving much, but might be difficult to hit, it seems like you're quite good at hitting it. But when a target might be big and easy to hit, but is moving around a lot, you seem to be really bad at hitting it. And I think that's because you're moving your crosshair so slowly. And I think the other problem with it is the fact that you're playing Lifeweaver, and Lifeweaver has his main weapon, the Thorns, are a slow projectile. If you haven't heard of projectile and hit scan, they're the two types of bullets in Overwatch. And hit scan bullets have 0 travel time. The second you click, the bullet will hit someone if there is a straight line between you and that person. Whereas projectile weapons have to actually travel through the air and reach the person first, which means there's time for that person to get out of the way. Your weapon is a very slow projectile by the standards of this game, and that means there's a lot of time for enemies to move before it actually reaches the enemy you're going after. And when I see you missing shots, a lot of the time, you're actually aiming correctly where the enemy is. It's just that you're not using a hit scan weapon, so that doesn't hit, because you're shooting where the enemy is right now, but it takes about a second for it to even reach them, and by the time it reaches them, they've moved. So you need to start, obviously this is difficult, and it's a skill you have to learn, but you'll need to start thinking that when you play Lifeweaver, you're not shooting where people are. It looks like you're actually not too bad at that, but you need to be shooting where people are going to be, not where they are. But yeah, you get a decent amount of headshots here. I mean, obviously it's nothing crazy, but again, by bronze standards, this is better than a lot of bronze players. So, you might notice right now that your Junker Queen is lucky to be alive. If I remember right, she does live this, which is a miracle. You saw, she barely lived this. So while she doesn't die, this is why I made a point of saying that you didn't heal her earlier. And again, I don't think that's because you did it on purpose. I think that you just didn't even notice she was missing a quarter of her health. But this is where awareness becomes a very important thing. Now, as well as that, you might be thinking, well, it's frustrating now that I know that the diva was there the whole time. I'm so not used to using the spectate overlay. Okay, there we go. It's frustrating knowing that I could have done something and I didn't, that the diva was here the whole time. But in my defense, I couldn't see her. How was I supposed to know she was there? Well, two things. For one, what happened to Lifeweaver's hand? Okay, that's very interesting. Very interesting. There we go. Alright then. Well, for one, this game has sound, and you should really use it. I think... I can't tell, but I get the feeling that you're not, like, listening out for sounds, you're only looking for things to see. You can actually... Diva's footsteps, because she's a tank and she's in a giant mech, are actually really, really loud. And so if I play this back, you can hear a gun's going off as well, right next to you. So I can only imagine you either blanked that out or didn't really hear it. But if you kept a bit of a sharper ear out, you would have known that your Junker Queen is in trouble. The other thing as well is that, of course, as in support, you can see your teammates through walls. And so you could have seen your Junker Queen through walls, and if you were keeping a closer eye on her, you would have known that she was being attacked, even if you couldn't see the Diva. So, yeah.
Viable progress.
So it nearly cost the Junker Queen her life here, but she just barely survives this. Mostly thanks to the Moira. Okay, so this I do have to pick at a bit. That life grip, I can only guess that was like a misinput. So I won't get like rag on it too much because I doubt that you consciously chose to do that. I'm guessing you just kind of pressed the wrong button. But yeah, that's not a good life grip. It put her in a worse position, and it didn't save her from anything. You pulled her away from the Diva, which currently you really want to be demeching because she's low on health and separated from her team. And you got it's 3 versus 2 right now, so you've got a good chance of being able to demech her. And Junker Queen does a lot more damage up close, but now you pulled her away from the Diva, so she's going to struggle to kill the Diva. Yeah, she's closer to the Cass, but the Cass is too far away, and if she chases the Cass can run back into their team, so that's not really a good idea. And of course, you didn't save her from anything because she wasn't about to die, and there wasn't anything that was about to hit her that you pulled her out of the way of. So that life grip ended up not being very useful. And that does end up costing you at least a little bit, because we're a bit slow to do it, but you eventually demech this Diva. And we should, by all means, get a kill here. The Diva is stuck on the opposite side of the map. None of their teammates are near them. They have no mech. They have nothing but their pistol and 150 HP with no abilities. And we all dip. Now, in fairness, the Moira is partially at fault as well, because she even used Fade to get away when she could have Fade jumped up to the Diva and finished her off. But this is also, I would say, an issue where you should have really done something here. Because you're playing Lifeweaver. The whole point of playing Lifeweaver is to use Life Grip and Petal Platform. And I don't think you got a good use out of Life Grip or Petal Platform this entire game. Now, in fairness, I do think that's partially just because, unfortunately, Colosseo... I would say they're far worse maps. You can play Lifeweaver on Colosseo, but I would say that Colosseo isn't an easy map to play Lifeweaver on. There's not a lot of high ground to utilize, and there's not a lot of great spots to pull people from. But there are still things you can do. And one of the only things you could do to get value as Lifeweaver, that only Lifeweaver could do right now, is place down a Petal Platform and chase that Diva up there. You're more likely to kill her than she is to kill you, and there's 3 of you there. You're getting you could get healed by Moira, you could get a lot of help with it, and by leaving this Diva here, you're not only missing out on a kill, but something much worse happens as well.
For the parched.
You've all completely ignored her, and now she's just behind you, just hanging around. Now, thankfully, nothing bad happens. She herself seems to be a little bit nervous, and so she just walks away. She has a chance to do something, but she decides she'll just sneak away. But I would say that, actually, it sounds like she's fighting the Junkrat right now. I don't know. I'm not going to distract myself by trying to look. Either way, but you saw how earlier that Junkrat, when you went to help him, was critical health. Oh, I went a little bit too far back, but... Yeah, you see how this Junkrat is about to be on critical health, and you come to help him. And that is the right thing to do, but here's the thing. Imagine if the D.Va was a bit more confident. If the D.Va was a bit more confident now, she could have gone for a cheeky shot on this Junkrat right now and killed him before you could heal him. Because you didn't chase her when you had the chance to get a free kill on her. So you wouldn't only have missed out on a kill on D.Va, the enemy tank, probably the most important person on the enemy team to kill, but on top of that, you would also have caused your Junkrat to die. And on top of that, her being able to kill Junkrat would mean she gets her mech back faster. So, yeah, I really don't like just leaving the D.Va there. Now, I imagine this is one of those things where you kind of know deep down, you probably knew deep down that you should have gone for the D.Va, but you just think, oh no, my aim is bad, oh, I couldn't do it, oh, I'm playing a support, not a DPS, I can't do that. But you really can't let yourself give into that mentality. Obviously, you know, confidence isn't literally everything, but I do think that people who get really worried about how bad their aim are end up making themselves worse at aiming by being terrified of ever getting into a situation where they have to use aim. And again, I'd even say your aim, again, at least by the low standards of bronze, is actually pretty decent. I would say it's probably better than most of the people in this lobby, even if only by a small amount. So I think that you've got a pretty good chance against that D.Va. I think that if you go for it, yeah, I mean, to be honest, likely both of you would miss a lot of shots, but I think you're more likely to come out victorious in the end. And I think that if you do that, you get a lot of reward. Again, you take out the enemy tank, and you make your backline safe. So, yeah, I guess just don't refrain from making what you know is the right play just because you think either A, oh, I'm a support, I'm not supposed to do that, or B, oh, I can't aim, I probably won't be able to do this, even though I know it's the right thing to do. Even if you quote-unquote can't aim, you will never learn to aim properly if every single time you're just like, oh, I'm too scared, I can't aim, I'm not going to do that. And I mean, this is coming from someone whose aim used to be awful, and I would still say my aim is my worst attribute in Overwatch. It's just that now it's finally to a state where I don't think it's bad anymore. But it was awful for a really long time, and I had to basically avoid almost every aim-intensive character in the game for an extremely long time in Overwatch. So, like, I know the pain of, like, thinking, oh god, my aim is bad, oh god. But honestly, it only got better once I started, like, you know, okay, I'm going to dive into the deep end, I'm going to start playing more aim-intensive characters, I'm going to see how I do on them, I'm going to get a feel for it, and of course, eventually you just get better over time. Okay, so another thing that you're doing that I don't really like, which I kind of haven't commented on, just because, not at least not yet, just because it is bronze, and again, bronze is so different to normal games because of how disorganized everyone is in most bronze games. But I still think this is important to mention because it still matters somewhat in bronze. It's more just like a coin flip whether you end up getting punished for it or not. And once you get out of bronze, you will definitely need to start learning to not do this. Lifeweaver, as you might have noticed, doesn't have a lot of tools to defend himself if he gets in trouble. He has dash and he has platform. Now, in reality, he's actually one of the most powerful supports in the game when it comes to keeping himself alive if you're good with him. In fact, when he was brand new, for a decent amount of time, he was actually my highest KD character in the game, not because I got a bunch of kills on him, but just because I ended almost every game with Lifeweaver with only 1 death or 0 deaths, because you could use Petal Platform and Rejuvenating dash that effectively to just constantly hide on high ground, constantly get away from enemies whenever they tried to jump on you. And that was before Lifeweaver got his buffs. That was back when he had 200 health, and when his Rejuvenating dash barely healed him at all. Now, in fairness, I personally only play Lifeweaver on maps that I know are going to be good for Lifeweaver, and as I said, this one isn't great for Lifeweaver, so that's a little bit harsh to compare you to that standard. Because, of course, having less high ground makes it hard to stay alive, but I definitely see you doing 2 things with Lifeweaver that you need to kick if you still want to play Lifeweaver. One of them is that the thing that you need to use with Lifeweaver to avoid dying is distance, because Lifeweaver can heal from a pretty long distance. His heal auto-aim, so even if your aim isn't that good, you'll still hit people with your healing from a long distance. And obviously, he's got the tools to get far away. He's got dash and he's got Petal Platform. You almost always want to be somewhere high up, and if you can't be somewhere high up, you want to be somewhere far away, but where you can still see your teammates to heal them. I notice that you have a tendency to walk right up to your teammates' faces to heal them, even though that doesn't actually make your healing more effective at all. It's just putting yourself in more danger for no reason. So I would say, for one, you need to remember that distance is one of your strongest tools as Lifeweaver, and you should probably play a little bit further back. The other thing, which we're going to talk about a little bit more when we see more examples, but I believe in this entire game you use Petal Platform only 2 times, and that is a terrible waste. Now again, I will give you some credit. This is a map where Petal Platform is awkward to use. There are places you can use it, but there are far less places you can use it effectively than in most maps, and most of the places you can use it are not in this middle area. You can use it to jump over this little glass area and get onto this side of the windows if you want, but other than that, there's very few places you can really use the Petal Platform effectively in this middle area, so I'll give you that. But you definitely need to start using Petal Platform more. In fact, one of the 2 times you used it this game was kind of you just panicked through it out when you were about to die and didn't do anything with it as well, which obviously isn't ideal. I noticed that whenever you did get in trouble in this game, you would never do what most Lifeweavers do to get away, and what I usually do. And that is to quickly turn around, place down a Petal Platform at your feet, allow it to push you up into the sky, and then either stay on it if you think it's in a good spot, or if you don't like where you are and you think you're still in danger, jump off of the platform and use your dash mid-air to try and reach another bit of high ground further back, which might be a bit more safe. While this might sound simple, this is exactly how Lifeweaver became my highest KD hero. Because he is amazing at just slipping away without dying, simply by making sure you're always in a sensible spot, and whenever you get in trouble, drop down that Petal Platform, dash to safety. Even if you are like a little bit nervous, you don't think you can act quick enough to drop it down, jump up, dash, you could at the very least just drop it and go up on it and stand still and crouch, because if you crouch in the center of the Petal Platform, it goes so high up that without a very wide angle, it's almost impossible for any enemies below you to shoot you, as long as you stay crouched in the center. And the Petal Platform itself has 400 health if they want to break it. So you'll be pretty safe up there, at least for a few seconds. It's better than just dying on the spot. Overall though, this is part of the reason why I kind of want to suggest you try a different character, not only because Lifeweaver doesn't have a lot of carry potential, but also, I must admit, I mean, play whatever's fun for you. If you really like Lifeweaver, stick with him, but it seems like you're not using any of the tools that make Lifeweaver good. And I guess I can see why, because it's probably very difficult to find good situations to use Petal Platform and Life Grip in Bronze. But if that's the case, I think that you probably wouldn't want to use Lifeweaver in Bronze. I'm not saying you have to play Mercy or anything, but just as an example. Mercy and Lifeweaver's healing is pretty comparable overall. If anything, Mercy's is probably a little bit better. And Mercy has far more mobility than Lifeweaver, has Res, which is really easy to get good value out of, and has damage boost. As Lifeweaver, you're not often getting any kills, and you're often basically just existing to heal. And I think the 3 things that could make him still be worthwhile, despite that fact, is 1, if you're avoiding death a lot using his Petal Platform and dash, which unfortunately you aren't, and in fairness that might be partially because of the map, but I don't know how you do on other maps. 2, it could be for using Life Grip to correct bad positioning on other players and save their lives, but I don't think you got a Life Grip this game, which I felt did that. So I wouldn't say that ended up getting any value. Or 3, obviously bringing people who couldn't usually reach high ground to the high ground. And while that is very valuable when you can get it to work, I imagine you wouldn't be able to coordinate in that in Bronze. I mean, already at my ranks, again, around Diamond, I struggle enough already just trying to get some people on high ground. I can only imagine what it's like at Bronze. You can probably never even really do it. Again, which character you would pick besides Lifeweaver is kind of up to you. I don't have all that many suggestions. I already kind of said Brick would probably be my best suggestion if you don't want to play one that's super aim intensive but still has some carry potential, but you can play whoever you want. I just don't think that Lifeweaver would be the fit for you if you aren't going to be using Life Grip and Petal Platform. Anyway, I know I paused for a while, but those were just 2 things that I thought were very important to address here. Let's keep playing.
Stick with the robot!
You
care always
Oh,
helps.
yes, I forgot about this bit. I don't like what you do here. So, it sounds like a simple thing, but I think one of your biggest problems is just paying attention to your surroundings. So you can see there are 2 enemies here, and you probably know there's probably more than 2. Of course, we can see there's a 3rd enemy here. So you can tell the enemies are all coming from there, and, you know, this is where the front line is, this is where the danger is, and now the Mercy is firing at you. Wait, was the Mercy firing at you? I thought I saw pistol bullets. Oh, never mind, that was the Junkrat bomb, never mind. Well, either way. So, at this point, you turn away from the enemies. Already, I don't like this, because right now, let me see, how does this look in free cam? I think I really should use free cam to illustrate just what I mean. Yeah, you're about to be in line of sight of them. Let's put it in 1/4 speed, and they can see you and shoot you right now, and you're just... I mean, they shot the Moira there. I mean, obviously they don't land their shots, they kill Moira instead, but they can shoot you this whole time. And you're not even looking at them or paying attention to what's going on there, which I think is a big problem. Now, I know why you're not looking that direction, and that's because you're thinking, oh, I saw someone was critical back there, let me go heal them. But that's also another problem. So, actually, did I go too far back? Oh, no, this is the right bit. So, for one, you know that the Jungle Queen is getting onto this D.Va, and you should, if you, at the very least, you should probably, like, help a bit with that. You should probably help her doing that.
A little care always helps.
Where is she going? Did she change her mind? No, she's still going there. Yeah, she's going for it. So while you're not looking at the rest of your team, Moira dies right next to you, and you could have saved her, but you weren't looking at her. And then as well as that, now Junker Queen is going off on her own to go after this D.Va, and knowing this Junker Queen, she's going to struggle to kill her. And she's also going to get separated from her team. Now, if you looked back to do something really valuable, I would understand this, but what did you do? You healed the invisible Sombra. This wasn't necessary because Sombra's already invisible. No one's going to be shooting her anytime soon. No one can see her. She can also heal herself. She can hack health packs. In fact, she was right next to one a second ago. So you don't really need to heal her. Not that it's bad to heal Sombra, but just it's a very low priority. And so thinking now is the time to do it when enemies are pushing in, when your tank is going off for a kill on someone and you're not helping them, when the support next to you is dying but you didn't see because you were tunnel visioned on the Sombra. I mean, again, this is just one of those things. You pick up these things more, like, easily, and it comes more naturally the longer you play. You did say you've only been playing for 2 months, so likely it just hasn't sunk in yet. Like, a lot of these just simple game sense things that start to become second nature the longer you play. But ultimately, you healed someone who could have healed themselves and wasn't in danger, and in the process, you abandoned your tank and you let your other support die. As well as letting the enemies take the robot, which, to be fair, I'm not sure how much you could have fought off the enemies, but maybe if you stuck with the tank and, you know, helped them kill the D.Va, and then the tank could come back, maybe then you could fight the enemies off the robot. Again, as much as I'm blaming you here just for the sake of, you know, obviously calling out your mistakes so you know what to improve, I would still say this is more the tank's fault than yours. I mean, to be fair, someone should be going off to kill that D.Va, but the tank kind of abandons the front line as well for the sake of killing that D.Va, which kind of lets everyone push in and kill the Moira. But yeah, obviously, shared blame there. It's kind of a bit of both of your faults there. But not to mention, oh yeah, I didn't mention as well. Sombra's invisible right now, right? I mean, we can see her because she's on our team, but to the enemy she's invisible. Well, if you didn't know, they can still see your healing orbs, and then they suddenly disappear mid-air to them when it touches the Sombra. Now, of course, this is bronze, so it's not likely to be the case because, well, it's bronze, so people aren't all that attentive. But once you start getting to higher ranks, people might start noticing this. Right now, you're actually revealing your Sombra's position. You're letting everyone know, hey, there's a Sombra here, you just can't see it. And if anything, you're kind of putting the Sombra in more danger by trying to heal them when they don't really need to be healed. then on top of that, you even healed them again while they're full health, when you should have been healing the Junkrat, who desperately needs your help. And it seems like you realize it, but by the time you do, he's already dead, which is a shame. This might just be a reaction time problem. There are a couple times that it seems like the reaction is a bit slow, so I guess that's just something that you develop over time. But yeah, this Junkrat already needs help while you're healing Sombra. I just realised now while editing this, I could make a really good point here, which I didn't think to make at this point. You know how earlier I said I didn't like how far forward you were playing as Life Weaver and the distance would be really helpful? Well, aside from the fact that you could have healed this Junkrat to maybe save them, imagine how much more useful Life Grip would be right now if you were all the way at the back. If you were sitting all the way at the back and this Junkrat walks backwards while on fire and critical health, desperate for your help, you could pull him all the way out of here and save his life. But the fact that you're so far forward means that, well, you don't even use Life Grip on him, but even if you did, you probably wouldn't save him because you'd only pull him like one step back. You probably would get a lot more situations where Life Grip would actually be really useful if you kept a bit more distance from your teammates, again, just making sure you can still see them. You know what, I think this is, okay, I'm being a bit harsh right now, but I think this is because this is the worst part of the game for you. I don't think, for most of the game, I don't think you do anything this bad, but I think this moment was really bad. Again, it's not all your fault. I think the tank also was doing some stupid things here. I think the Moira shouldn't have been, like, so obviously within the Ashes line of sight. I think the Junkrat, well, I remember I watched this from the Junkrat's perspective. He could have easily stayed in this corner room, but he just decides to walk out there and get himself dead. Again, everyone's to blame. It's not all your fault. But at the end of the day, of course, if we're talking about improving your gameplay, I'm going to have to point out your mistakes. And you could have fixed a lot of your other teammates' mistakes if you're a bit more attentive there. You could have healed the Junkrat before he died. You could have gone with the Junker Queen. You could have healed the Moira standing right next to you before she died. But again, because you're not all that attentive, you missed a lot of these things, all to heal someone who didn't need healing while revealing their position when they were invisible. Oh yeah, this is a good example of another thing as well. I said it earlier, I don't actually think you have bad aim, at least not for bronze standards. It's just that it doesn't seem like you play with the fact in mind that you're using a projectile weapon, not a hit scan. And this is a perfect example. I think you were actually not that, like... I think this is actually pretty close to hitting the Mercy if you were using a hit scan weapon. Like, if these things would hit the Mercy the second you click, and if they didn't take time to reach that, I imagine quite a few of those shots would have landed. The problem is, of course, that you have to get into the mindset of, which is, I think this is something you'll just pick up. Like, now you've been told, you'll probably quite quickly pick this up. But you'll have to, instead of shooting where they are right now, you could have shot obviously below them, and then you probably would have landed more hits. But it's fine. And you can get... But yeah, this is where you kind of just throw out a health platform and don't really do anything with it. Yeah, I'm guessing that was just like a panic response.
Helden sterben nicht.
สงสัยต้องลองวิธีอื่นละ
They're pushing
Healing
ahead.
here, at your convenience. Shall we do this together?
Okay, I do like this. You're waiting because you've seen that a lot of teammates are dead and you're regrouping. A lot of people in bronze don't do that. Oh, okay, so you said as well... Okay, I can't tell because obviously it doesn't show up the same in the replay, but I can't tell how much you said you're grouping up. You said in the Reddit post that you were spamming group up. I don't know how hyperbolic you were being, whether like you really were spamming it or whether you just said it a couple times, but you're like, oh, I was spamming it or whatever. But if you actually were saying group up over and over and over and over, I would say that while I understand why you're doing that, I would say you shouldn't do that. I understand you're not wrong. You do need to be more grouped up. Everyone is very disparate and very in the wrong spot at the wrong time, and everyone's going off doing different things. Unfortunately, that's just kind of how it is at lower ranks a lot of the time. But I think that it's better for you to simply say group up once or twice, and if it doesn't happen, just deal with it, than to sit there spamming group up, because doing that distracts people, and a lot of the times when people see it, they just get pissed off. And so, I mean, even sometimes if you've got a particularly toxic teammate, they will just start throwing the game, or they'll go out of their way to be a lone wolf on purpose just to spite you. Again, I'm not saying it's fair, but unfortunately that's how it is. So if you are telling your team, hey, get together, group up, over and over and over and over, they'll probably just tune it out or they'll do the opposite just to spite you. It's unfortunate that it's like that, but it is how it's like. And even if they do go along with you, if they do it begrudgingly, it might get them tilted more easily, and you play worse when you're tilted. So I would say that while it sucks when people don't group up, it is a part of the game. And so you can say group up once or twice or maybe 3 times in a whole game, but if you're saying it over and over, just standing there, group up, group up, group up, you're probably just going to piss off your teammates and they're probably not going to listen to you anyway. So I would say even if you're right, even if you are correct in saying that you should be grouping up, I think you do just have to bite the bullet there and deal with the hand you're given, because spamming it just makes things worse.
You're better off
Oh,
with
okay.
me.
I will say this. It's a small one. You don't get a whole lot of it, but this, I would say, is the one life grip in the game that I think you got good value out of. I think the Moira was going to die there realistically. She was, as I say, she's too aggressive on this cast. She keeps thinking she can kill this cast, when Cass is one of the best characters in the game at killing Moira. And yeah, she was going for that duel when she shouldn't have been, especially because the rest of the team is dead for the most part, except for the Sombra all the way in the back. And so that means that obviously you were right to pull her back and say, no, stop chasing him, get back here, group up, you're going in together.
Pain is inevitable. I'm under attack.
Now, that Jungle Queen. Yeah, okay, so again, as a reminder, I'm giving a lot of criticism, and sometimes I feel like I'm being a little bit harsh. Again, it's not because I'm trying to, like, be mean about it. It's just because, of course, if you're asking about what can I do better in this, like, game, I have to point out what I feel like could have been done better. But, this Junker Queen definitely is doing a lot worse than you are. I think this Junker Queen is the main reason this game was such a wipeout. Like, just... You can... I mean, I know this isn't related to you, but just for 1 second, because I think this
Can't
really
have
is
it
the
getting
trace here.
worse.
She just has no plan. She's just walking into a 4v2 where where the only other person healing her is you, and she just drops down off the high ground with no plan right into the D.Va and gets booped instantly into a spot where no one can heal her. I can already hear her typing in chat, "Oh my god, no heals, no heals," when she's instantly put herself in a spot where she can never be healed. Okay. I know, even at the ranks I'm at, I know tanks like that, and it's very frustrating. Okay. So, this is another good example of what I was on about earlier, and I know that I'm kind of repeating the same thing, but just for the sake of it illustrating, you can see your crosshair is actually basically right on the Ashe. Again, I don't think your aim is actually that bad. You're aiming like you're aiming a hit scan, and I think all you have to do is tell your brain, no, I'm aiming at a projectile, not a hit scan, and you'll probably start landing a whole lot more shots.
The enemy is pushing their barricade.
I have you.
That's a fine light. That's kind of neutral. No, actually, no, okay. I think that's sensible, because the fact that the Moira is in the D.Va's face means that she should die. However, the D.Va runs away, and I'm not sure why. So you didn't need to do that. I don't know, this is what makes reviewing bronze games sometimes so bad, because, like, that's the correct play, technically. But because the D.Va didn't make the correct play either, of killing the Moira, that means that now, technically, that was kind of maybe not the correct play, because the Moira was actually damaging the D.Va, and the D.Va was just ignoring the Moira, and then you pulled her away, so she wasn't getting value, but... Oh god, this is where you get into the like paradoxes, where it's like, okay, so you made the right play, but because of how dumb bronze is, it became the wrong play because the opponent didn't do the right play, and the right play is only the right play if the opponent does the right play, but they did the wrong play, and then it just becomes a maze of just fucking stupid plays. Yeah, that was probably a fine grip, but I don't think it really changed much. Okay, you did shoot at the wall a decent amount there, I will admit, that's not great.
Group up. Windborn.
Sorry, I didn't watch all of the Moira's gameplay. She was the one I watched the least of. Yeah, she just jumped down here. Yeah, that wasn't very smart of her. She's gonna die for that throw. It is criminal she doesn't die for that. That was... she shouldn't have jumped down there. Okay, well, whatever. I think we just missed a good bit. Let's go back. Oh, right, yes. So you get out of the way of the high noon. Which, nicely done. I mean, obviously it wasn't too difficult in this instance, but obviously in bronze you're always going to find people who walk right into it, so good job for not being one of them.
Nerf this! They're moving the barricade! Stop them! Come here, Cookie.
Sorry, just... Ooh, wait, I don't remember what happened here. Okay, you kind of got bailed out there. That was... Okay, so... You kind of just walk into this. And in fairness, I know that you can't see the cast through the walls. You can't see him, but this is another thing where I'm saying just how important sound is. His footsteps are quite loud right now. You can hear the dup, dup, dup. You would know that he's at least close. Maybe you wouldn't know he's exactly coming up these stairs, but you'd know he's very close by and that you're in danger if you were listening out for those. Now, luckily, you end up being fine, because while you seem to be panicked and slow to react to this, he is as well, and then he also gets EMP'd, so he can't grenade you. So your Sombra kind of bailed you out there, and also got a... Wow, that Sombra got a good EMP there. Does that lead to any kills, though?
The warmth of firelight.
Wow, that is criminal. That Sombra did an amazing EMP there, and we got 0 kills off of it. That is very unfortunate.
Within my reach.
Quite a few headshots there, very nicely done. As I say, I don't think your aim is actually that bad, considering the skill tier you're playing at. Compared to the competition, I think it's decent.
Me, back in control.
Life protects life.
I don't like this. Okay. No one is damaged, and you've just used Tree of Life. I think that's all I really need to say for the most part. Don't get me wrong, I know that it overheals, so people have more health now, but why do they need more health? They don't. Now, of course, unfortunately in this game, well, I say unfortunately, fortunately for you, I guess, you do get lucky. The Ash, for some reason, throws out Bob the second that you drop Tree, which was a misplay on the Ash's part, but that means that now the tree does get value, because it makes sure no one dies to Bob. But obviously, if we're doing this the smart way, we would probably hold off on the tree until we hear the Ash use Bob or some other ultimate that requires tree go off, and then put down the tree. Especially because, if you weren't aware, the first healing pulse from the tree that comes out the second you place it heals for more than the rest of the healing pulses. Almost double. I think it is double. I think it's 150 for the first pulse and 75 after that. So you get much more value out of tree if you wait until people are investing ultimates or resources or whatever, and your team's actually going to die, and then you quickly drop it and get everyone back up to full health, and now their enemies probably wasted their ultimate, because with the tree they're probably not going to get any kills with that Bob. And that's a good trade as well, because while tree is definitely a good ultimate, it's not like the most broken ultimate in the game, whereas Bob, I would say, is one of the best DPS ultimates in the game, so counteracting Bob with tree, I think, is definitely a good trade. I was about to say I would get onto healing that Moira, but it looks like you did. You're a little bit slow to it, but I mean, not that slow. It's fine. Healing's living anyway. I was about to say, like, awareness, but actually I think I only saw him because you could see him through walls in the replay, if I'm fair. Yeah, no, we never got a direct line of... So yeah, that's fair enough, you didn't see that. What did you die to? Oh, I see. Cass is over here.
My tree's gone. Find cover.
Yeah, he's walking around the back. Oh wow, he must have been there for a while too. So yeah, I will say in this case, while you could have heard him, I mean, as you could tell, even I didn't notice the sound because obviously there's a bit more going on at the moment, so it's a bit hard to pick out individual sounds. So I will say that. But I would also say, I feel like in your gameplay, a lot of the time you're looking in the same spot. And while if you're actually doing something there, that's a good idea, if you aren't doing something. Like if there's no fight yet, you're just looking in the direction you expect the fight is going to happen. I think it's fine to every now and then look to your left, look to your right, take a quick look around. I don't know, this sounds like a very small thing, but at the same time, I do see a decent amount of bronze players who get very tunnel vision. They think, I'm going to look down main, and I'm going to only look down main, and then someone goes to the left or to the right, and they just kind of walk up to them and kill them. And you don't really see this happen outside of lower ranks. I don't know, personally in my games, this stuff like this doesn't really happen. Well, sometimes it does, but not very often. And usually when it does happen, it's because the person who did it was sneaking, so that you couldn't hear their footsteps. Not just they literally walk up, footsteps and all, and just bang bang. So, yeah.
I want that robot back! Let's go!
ฉลาดกันนักนะ เอ๊ะหรือเราโง่เอง Safety in numbers. That should do it.
Oh, is your tank AFK because they're typing? Oh, I just realized they're typing on Xbox as well. Oh, wait, maybe this is crossplay? I don't know. Anyway, yeah.
I'm coming in hot!
The AFK, which is not good. I would say remember that you have a dash. Like, the Moira is in trouble right now. They need help. And in fairness, it's kind of their fault for going behind this wall. Like, they shouldn't have faded here. That is their fault. But, like, you could jump and dash over so that you could get to heal her quicker. You kind of let her die there. Not only... I think even without the dash, if you had had the healing out rather than the thorns, you could have saved her. But on top of that, if you had used dash, then you could have got to her faster and had even more time to give her the healing. But... instead, you kind of just let her die because you slowly walked round the corner and then you didn't even have your heal ready when you did. Instead, you tried shooting at this tank, which, I mean, you're not going to win that duel, of course. And now you've got a problem because now you're the only support left and people are already dying over here, so there's not many people left to deal with this tank and DPS now hiding in the corner there, pretty close to your spawn.
It's high time.
Stay here, hmm?
Okay, actually, that was a good pull as well, only because this Junkrat was about to walk right into a high noon, oh my god. Although I will also say, your positioning isn't perfect here. I mean, the grass still was good, the life grip, but the cast is still visible, he's still there. You should have gone a little bit more to the left or the right. In fact, he still shoots
better,
you.
I hope.
He doesn't kill you because he couldn't see you the entire time, so he didn't fully charge the Deadeye, but he could see you right then, I think. Like, you could have died there because you didn't go to the left or the right. In fact, let me see. Let me go back a little further. Let me see it from the cat's perspective. Oh, wait, put me on. Okay, here we go. Yeah, you left him out the way. And then, yeah, okay, so he could see you there. He could have killed you if he stood there a bit longer, but he fired it off too quickly. In fact, yeah, that was basically... You basically lived there because there was a misplay from the Cass. The Cass had the D.Va giving him a defense matrix to protect him. If he just stood there, he wouldn't have died because of D.Va's defense matrix, and he could have charged it up and killed you. So, good grip, but also you should have made sure that you were further into cover. Because you still nearly did die there, and if the Cass was a bit smarter, he could have still killed you.
Just in case.
Long ไปกับสายลม
There's the dash.
EMP activated.
Better? ปกป้องชีวิต
It's very simple, but I have to appreciate any time someone in bronze makes sure to duck out of the way of a D.Va bomb. You know, it's a rarity in bronze, so clap clap. Okay, this is a bit of a nitpick, and I'm going to admit that straight out, but I still think it'd be helpful for me to point this out just as a, like, for future. When you hear that shing sound, you know obviously that's the sound for Mercy's res, and she can barely move while using that. This is a perfect opportunity to hit her with thorns, because again, Life Weaver's thorns actually do a lot of damage. The main problem is just it's so hard to consistently hit people with them, even if you have good aim, because they take so long to reach the target. But the target can barely move, then it becomes a lot easier to hit them. Right now, you're shooting the tree, and I'll be real with you, this is giving you 0. For one, you don't get ultimate charge for shooting deployables like Torbjorn turret or tree. And so that means that you're not getting any ultimate charge for this, which you would have gotten if you shot someone else. As well as that, the tree has 1,000 health. You're not killing it. You're not going to get anything out of doing this. And what you could have been doing instead is you could have been firing at the Mercy. And yeah, maybe you'd miss a few shots, but then you, one, have a chance to kill her and cancel out her resurrect, especially because the Junker Queen's helping you. You know, you might have been able to kill her off and cancel this res, and that would have been really valuable. And even if you don't, you probably land at least a couple hits, which means you get ultimate charge for shooting her, when you don't get ultimate charge for shooting this. So it's definitely better to shoot the Mercy here. However, I will also say, to be fair, I say that's a nitpick because thanks to the overhealth from the Tree of Life, it was very unlikely you were going to be able to kill this Mercy. And I'm guessing if you've only been playing 2 months, you probably didn't even know you don't get ult charge for shooting the tree, so fair enough. But yeah, now that you know that, obviously in future I would say I wouldn't bother trying to shoot it. You don't get anything for it. Even if you think it's going to be a bit harder to land the shot, I would go for shots on other characters.
Try them off the robot.
Let's take him to the wasteland! Surrender to my will.
Okay, this is another thing of what I mean by kind of playing slow. Now, luckily it doesn't end up mattering here. It looks like the Junker Queen's fine. But my gut feeling, my Life Weaver brain, as soon as I hear ding ding and I hear this Junker Queen going for a big ult, for one, obviously this is good because I know they're going to hit a bunch of people and anti them, which is obviously good. But also, she's flinging herself head first into a death trap. My Life Weaver brain right now is screaming, dash out there and be ready to grip her out the second she's about to die. I would be right now dashing to this point, ready to use Life Grip, and the second I see her drop to critical, pull her out. And you kind of pull back into this wall and play it safe, which to be fair, I see why, you are low on health. But I think you should be a bit more confident and be ready to do that. At the very least, I would have dashed out here rather than slowly walking out, because in that time there was a good chance that the Junker Queen would have died. Now, I believe she's still alive, is she? So, I lost track of her. She is still alive. I don't actually know how she... Oh, the self-heal from the ultimate. Wow, she got a lot of self-heal from that. But, yeah, now she's dying. You could have saved her. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying this is your fault, because it is the tank's fault. This was a stupid idea what they did here. I mean, the ult wasn't a bad idea, but then continuing to run forward and go behind this wall where no one can heal them, that was a bad idea. So it's not like this is all your fault, but again, if you're playing Life Weaver, you're only getting value out of playing Life Weaver if you're correcting your teammates' mistakes. And here, because you were hiding in the corner, you didn't correct the Junker Queen's mistake, and now she dies for it. You didn't get to pull her out. Now another thing as well is this Ash. I remember this moment. Oh boy. Okay, I have some opinions about this moment. So, I kind of understand not catching this. You only got a small, window to see it, but there were footsteps, and once again, not only footsteps, but the sound of dynamite, which is very unique to Ash and very distinct. And it was only in my left ear, so it was very obvious to me, watching this first time, that an Ash was to the left throwing dynamite. Now, in fairness, you didn't have much time to react. You could have dashed out of the way if you were quick, but I think it's pretty fair that you didn't react to this in time. But then, it seems like you're not sure where you got hit from, and then you read the hit marker, and like, oh wait, it's behind me, run, get to cover. It seems you're a little bit slow to pick up on where you're getting hit from. And then, this is the big thing, everything I mentioned so far is mostly you could have done better if you did this, but for the level you're at, it's probably par for the course, the way you reacted. It's not any uniquely better or worse than your other teammates. But this is what I really don't like. What was your plan there? You see, I don't actually think it's a bad idea to shoot the Ash here. I think it's a a 50-50 here. You got two options. You either play it safe and you hide and regenerate your health, or you push out this Ash. And I actually think both of these are valid options. The problem is you've got to commit to one, and unfortunately you don't commit to either. You try and do a bit of both and get the worst of both worlds. So, for one, you didn't wait long enough to regenerate your health, which means when you went to attack this Ash, you only had 128 health. If this Ash got lucky and landed one headshot on you, you would have died right here. And you spent a good 2-3 full seconds within clear view of the Ash. Now, thankfully, the Ash is tunnel visioned, and she completely forgot you were there because, unfortunately, at Bronze, there are a lot of players who haven't developed object permanence. You know, when something, once they can't see something anymore, it doesn't exist to them, and this Ash seems to have fallen for that. They lost track of you for 1 second, and now they've forgotten you exist. So, fortunately, she doesn't turn around and shoot you, but I just want to point out, obviously, the risk of going for this is if she did turn around and shoot you, she would only need to shoot you once if she could land a headshot, and you would just die on the spot, because you didn't wait for your health to regenerate. The other thing, though, is that... the other problem I have, though, is that, well, I actually don't think it's a bad idea to take that risk, since I did mention a lot of people in Bronze do get tunnel visioned and do struggle to remember things they can't see anymore. And so I do think it was fair enough to take this risk and go after the Ash, actually. Because, yeah, I do think that, you know, I do think there was a good chance she would be dumb like this and not go for the kill on you. And as a result of that, she would get tunnel visioned, and you get now a really good chance to kill her. That's right, kill her. Not land some shots, kill her. Which might sound shocking because you're playing a support and she's a DPS and she has nearly full health and you have half health. But you could kill her right now. Because, as I mentioned before a couple times, Thorns actually do really high damage if you headshot with them. Like, really high damage. Like, you can kill people in under 2 seconds from full health with Lifeweaver if you can land constant headshots with Thorns. It's just, again, even with good aim, that's usually not possible because of the travel time. But if this Ash is going to be standing practically still and not paying attention and doesn't know that you've come out of cover and are shooting at her, there could be a good chance she gets tunnel visioned on trying to line up her shots and doesn't react quick enough to her being pelted in the head by Thorns until she's already dead. You actually could get the kill on her here. And what I have a problem with is not only did you kind of hesitate, which kind of reduced your window, you kind of meander around a little bit before you decide you're going to take the risk, but on top of that,
Someone better get a fiery, because I'm on a roll.
you shot 2 shots. You've got 40 in your clip, man. You could shoot more than 2. Okay, I'm gonna get a little bit critical about this, just because the problem here isn't like, oh, you're bad, your aim sucks, whatever. In fact, you landed your shots. You didn't headshot, but you nearly did. They both hit like her upper shoulder. They were very close to headshotting. The aim is fine here. The problem is that you psyched yourself out. You told yourself, oh, I'm not going to land these shots. Oh, I'm being stupid. Oh, I'm overextending. And so what you ended up doing was just tickling her and running away, when you actually maybe could have killed her here if you just kept shooting. And now she gets away. Now, let me explain. I still think going aggro on that Ash wasn't a bad idea, because the fact that she was like sitting here was actually really scary for your team. And as I say, I think you actually have a good chance of killing it. I don't mind you going aggro on the Ash. I think it's risky, but I think it's a risk worth taking, and honestly probably the correct play. It's just, be decisive. If you decide you're going to do that, stick to it. Don't decide, oh, actually, no, actually, I've already started shooting her, but now I've decided I don't want to shoot her, actually. This is a really bad thing to do. Not only because, as you saw there, you can get the worst of both worlds a lot of the time, when you have a risky option that's high reward, but a safer option that's low reward, and then you try and kind of do both at once, and you end up getting the worst of both. That's not only very common in Overwatch as a problem that bad players have, but on top of that, the other issue is that you have a worse time learning from your mistakes if you don't commit to your plans. If you think, because in this situation, I'm not sure, I obviously can't read your mind, but I know that some players get this thing where when they're like, oh, I don't know if I should go in or not. Oh, should I go in? Oh, I'll go in. Oh, actually, I've started going in and I shot 1 or 2 bullets, but now I'm going to run away. Oh, I died. Now, you don't know if you fucked up because you were too aggressive or if you fucked up because you were too passive. You have no idea. You don't know which one it was, so you didn't learn anything. Now, obviously, I can sit here and say that both of them were valid there. I think that probably the better one was playing risky and being aggressive, but it's honestly, you can make a good argument for both. And I think the only problem is that you didn't stick to one. If you just picked one and stuck to it, I think that would have been fine. But I will say that, like, I don't know if, obviously I can't read your mind, but now I'm not sure if to you, you're now not sure whether you did the right thing or not there, whether it would have been correct to go aggro or whether it would have been correct to be passive. Now you kind of don't know. You didn't experience either one, so you don't know which one was correct. Of course, over time you develop a sense for when it's good to be aggressive and when it isn't, and obviously when you don't have that sense, it's basically just a 50-50 that you'll be right, and obviously it can feel a bit bad to be like, well, there's a 50-50 chance what I'm doing is stupid, but at least if you commit to it, you'll know if it was stupid afterwards, and you won't do it next time.
Can't have it getting worse.
Claiming the robot.
Again, aim here is obviously nothing stellar, but I would say not that bad. I think it's fine. Again, just same problem of shoot where they're going, not where they are.
Ladies and gentlemen, start your engines.
This is not a fight you should be taking, man. What's your plan here?
Start your engine.
You see, you don't know where your Moira is anymore. Well, you actually, wait, I forgot. You can see her through walls. She's her teammate, so you can see the Moira's dipping. Now you're in a 3v1. You're trying to 3v1 here. You shouldn't have come this close. As I mentioned, distance is like the best thing you have as life lever to stay alive. Getting this close was a mistake.
Let it flow.
Okay. This is honestly kind of bad.
Ladies and gentlemen, start your engines.
Let it flow.
So, okay. First of all, you really should have jumped off the left side of the bridge. Sorry, the right side of the bridge, not the left side. Because now you've jumped on the side closer to the enemies and, well, you jumped into the enemies. And you didn't seem to be aware that, well, there's enemies behind you, even though, well, the enemies are always going to be on this side. That's the side they come from. So that wasn't the best idea. But what's worse is your reaction here is really, really slow, and I think you made a poor decision here. So already the Ash has managed to get you 2/3 dead before you even know who's shooting you, because of how slow your reaction was and because of how poor your awareness of your surroundings was. And now, well, already this is a nasty situation you're in. Like, this is guaranteed death. There's not much you can do. And in fairness, it's impressive you got as much done as you did before you died here. Once again, your aim's actually fine here. You actually land basically every one of these shots. A couple of them hit this plant, but for the most part, you hit a lot. And you actually nearly killed her, which would have been a miracle if you actually managed to kill her there. But, for one, I think you could have saved yourself if you went for headshots there. Again, I know you're not confident with your aim, but honestly, you landed basically all those shots. If you just moved your crosshair up a bit, you might have been able to kill her. But even then, that's not the big issue. The big issue is your positioning here and your reaction to getting into trouble. This is not only not a good position to go in, you're throwing yourself into the enemy team voluntarily. But on top of that, why are we going this way? You actually could have salvaged this, I think. After you jump off the bridge. Okay. So you hear the shot, but you don't react to it. You get shot, and now you kind of panic, and you're like, oh, I don't know what's going on. Now, I remember when I first watched this, I paused it here, to check everything that was going on. And the second I saw you move like this, I thought you were actually about to do the right thing for a moment, or at least something I would consider a pretty decent play. And then you do this. So, what did you do wrong? If I go into free cam right now, let me around. You could have come in here. Now, don't get me wrong, this wouldn't have been perfect. Yeah, the Ash could just follow you in here. But here's the thing. Ash is a sniper. Ash isn't really good up close. And even before you looked at Ash, you would be able to know this is an Ash because her gun has a very distinct sound, and the bullets, everything sounds and looks just like Ash. Although, in fairness, that's probably a game knowledge thing you'll just pick up over time. But, yeah. Okay, actually, maybe I'm being a little bit harsh here, because I did just realise that this is under the assumption you know that it's Ash. And I suppose I thought that straight away. Oh, I know that bullet sound. I know what those bullets look like that went past your head. That's Ash. But I suppose, yeah, no, actually, I'm being a little bit harsh there. But yeah, if she does follow you in here, she's actually probably still going to struggle to kill you because she wants to be fighting you at long range, not up close. And you want to be fighting her up close. So it's honestly probably a pretty even like setup. It might even be favoured for you if she comes to chase you in here. Not to mention, you probably get a few seconds to regenerate your health, so you'd have a bit more than just one shot of health left. But even better than that, you could do something far better than doing this. You've forgotten that you have Petal Platform. You could just shoot yourself up here. Even better, shooting yourself up here would already probably be enough to save your life, but if you were more confident with Lifeweaver, you could have dropped Petal Platform down here the second you realised, like, obviously it took a second, but once you realised that you were in trouble, you could have Petal Platform up here, and you could have not even jumped up here, but jumped up into the air and then mid-air dashed over this wall back here, and then you would be safe. But instead, you start going this way. You already saw that there was a Lifeweaver over here that could have attacked you, and you went this way. Not to mention, even if the Lifeweaver wasn't there, that this is where the enemies come from. Even if you had no information, you'd have a pretty good idea that there are going to be enemies in this way, and yet you walked this way. So again, I know this is probably just a panic response. You're probably just like, oh god, I don't know what's going on, I'm going to run away, and you ran this way. But again, remember your team's this way. And remember that you have Petal Platform. You have more than enough tools here to get out of this alive. It's just that you panicked and you didn't use them. At the very least, there is one thing you didn't do when you panic, which most people do when they panic, which is good. And that is, you did keep your crosshair very steady. And that's what allowed you to land so many shots. As I say, a lot of people shake their screen like crazy and miss all their shots when they panic. I mean, I say that like, oh, those idiots who do that, but genuinely I do that a little bit. It kind of depends on the situation, but sometimes I do that. And it's a habit I need to kick. Oh, I think I know what's about to come up. Yep. Don't like this. So you nearly did something good here. If you stopped right here, stood still here, and waited to life grip the Junker Queen, it would have been fine. But then you drop off here and then grip her.
Come here, will you?
You want to put her on this platform. If you do that, then you put her in a nice high spot. But instead, you've dropped her and just plopped her here. And if anything, you've put her in more danger now. Because the Moira can only heal the Junker Queen if the Moira is right next to them, and you just pulled her away from her Moira, who could heal faster than you. And you didn't need the Junker Queen to be close to you to heal the Junker Queen. Not only that, but you jumped down here with the D.Va. D.Va does way more damage up close, and you're a support. You're not supposed to be here. So not only would I say this is not a good grip, but you're also putting yourself in jeopardy for no reason. Now, thankfully you don't get punished for it. Again, if you got to higher ranks, you would start getting punished for this a lot more harshly.
They're pushing it.
Something for the
Do something!
Life protects life.
Something you're forgetting. Okay, I'm being a little bit snarky there. This... You hear the epic music kicking in. That signifies the robot is about to reach your spawn, and if it does, the game ends instantly, I'm sure you're aware. This is not the time to be messing around in this corner. You need to be running to that robot to stop it in its tracks. And instead, you and the Junker Queen are going to kill this Bob. Why? The Bob can't move, and he's in a corner where no one can see it. The only reason it's even shooting you is because you're running after it to kill it. Right now, there are human players, actual enemies that have real people controlling them, pushing the robot, and it's right at the exit. And if you don't get there any second now, the game is going to end and you will lose. And instead, you're chasing after the Bob with the Junker Queen. Both of you are making a terrible mistake here. What's even worse is...
Life protects life!
Because you didn't even need to deal with this Bob, you didn't need to use Tree of Life to counteract it as well. You've wasted you now are 2 players and an ultimate down for the final fight. So, I need to demonstrate why this is an issue. Let's go back to when this whole fiasco started.
At your service.
Further back than that, I guess. Further back than that, I guess. Okay, so this is when the music kicks in. I'm going to switch perspective to free cam. Well, I'm going to play in free cam. And I'm going to go to the robot and show you what's going on over there. Don't you think the Tree of Life might be more helpful here? The Moira jumps in last second to save it. And she could have been saved right now if she had a Tree of Life healing her. Like, I'm surprised she survives this long. Think about it, this whole time there could have been a Tree of Life here. And that could have changed the outcome. Wait, actually... Oh yeah, I forgot, we get the robot back for a second, but you do lose here, don't you? They get their Tree of Life. Yeah, now they're just going in. And that's how it ends. Okay, so closing thoughts. You can always find people to blame for the most part, and I don't think that you, by any means, were the worst player in that game. I think that was definitely the Junker Queen, and I think there's an argument to say that the Junkrat was doing worse than you. That being said, I definitely think the Moira, despite her mistakes, was putting in more work, and I do think the Sombra was trying to carry that game. She was being Sisyphus. She was trying to carry that game like a boulder, and unfortunately she wasn't able to do it. She constantly got really important picks on the enemy backline, and she constantly got powerful EMPs off, and yet no one ever capitalized on it. And I think that's because basically everyone in your team was either shyly hiding in a corner a lot of the time, or just aggressively running at whatever they see, chasing it like a dog. Now, not all of that is your fault. Again, that's just kind of how it is at Bronze, and I know that you said you were trying to get people to group up. But you did sometimes act as a part of that problem. There were a lot of times where you didn't heal teammates who needed it desperately, and there were a lot of times where you, on top of that, acted overly passive and allowed terrible things to happen because you did that. You didn't kill the D.Va at the start of the game when they got demeched on your side of the map, and they easily could have been singled out and finished off if you chased her with Petal Platform. You also didn't commit to actually killing the Ashe when you actually had a good shot at killing her. And there were other moments where you kind of just hid in the back, kind of not doing anything. I think the aim problem is not as much of a problem as you think. I think that your shots... Again, I think your crosshair's quite steady. If anything, you might need to turn up your sensitivity a bit so you can turn a bit faster, because it seems like you turn around very slowly. I think that once you learn to remember that you're not shooting at where they are, but where they're going to be with the projectile, I think you will start landing a whole lot more shots, and I do think that you'll start feeling a lot less, insecure about your aim. And I think you really need to get past that insecurity about your aim, because I think, honestly, you being scared of missing shots is doing a lot more to make your gameplay worse than actually missing shots. Other than that, I only saw 2 trees this game, and I don't have any other games to look at, so obviously I might be wrong here, but at least going off of this game, I get the impression that you don't really know when you need to be using Tree of Life, and it's not that complicated. You basically almost exclusively use it defensively. It's essentially just, my teammates are dying, drop it down to save them, or the enemy used a really powerful ultimate, and I think it's worth using Tree to counteract that ultimate so that no one dies to it. Those are the 2 situations where you use it for the most part. The only time when I'd really use it aggressively is if it's the last few seconds of the game, it's the last chance you're going to get to turn things around, and people are struggling to reach the point. At that point, maybe you drop the tree on the point before anyone even needs healing, in preparation for people to reach the point. Maybe then. But other than that, I would say for the most part, you basically just use tree as a, oh god, everyone's going to die if I don't do this. And unfortunately, both the times you used it here, as I say, the first time, it ended up still being kind of useful because the Ashe made the mistake of throwing a bob into it. But again, you should have waited until after the Ash had used Bob to use Tree, ideally. And again, the second time you used it, you didn't need to use it at all. The second Bob wasn't an issue at all. He was hiding in a corner where no one could actually be killed by him. And as I pointed out, it would have been much more useful if that tree was on point, saving the lives of people desperately trying to hold the robot off from reaching the exit. Overall, I would say don't beat yourself up about it, because you've only been playing for 2 months, and believe it or not, even at low ranks like Bronze, there are some players who have been playing for years in those ranks. So they've got a lot of experience over you, even if they don't have a lot of skill over you. Don't get disheartened about it, it doesn't mean you're going to be stuck at Bronze forever, but I do think the way you're playing here, that you're high Bronze, low Silver in terms of the way that you play. At least as is right now. It seems like when you actually have a good picture of what's happening, that you're not too bad at just having good game sense and knowing the right thing to do. And again, when you have a target that isn't moving much, you're actually pretty good with your aim, thanks to your steady crosshair. But the game sense you do have doesn't end up being useful because of the fact that you have very, very poor awareness. And game sense only helps you make decisions based on the information you have. If you have very little information and you're missing out on a lot of crucial information because you're not listening out for things and not looking around for things, then the game sense won't matter. So you've got to put in a bit more of an effort to make sure that you're keeping an eye on everything that's happening and not just sort of wandering around and only paying attention to what's directly in front of you. Lastly, it does sound a little bit harsh, but I do think that Lifeweaver probably isn't a good character to pick, both for you, because it seems like you don't really like using the main things that actually make him good, and for Bronze, because, as I mentioned, I think Lifeweaver really requires teammates that are a bit more coordinated to be effective most of the time. With all that said, I hope that was helpful, and best of luck to you in climbing in future. I plan to do more of these, I find these quite fun actually, so I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.